All right, guys, we are doing a fun little video because I am going to be ranking my foundations from best to worst, or actually I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best, but I previously did ranking my eyeshadow palettes from worst to best, or best to worst, however you want to word it, and that did really well. So someone mentioned that they'd love to see it with foundations, so I am finally doing that, and here I have 25 foundations to mention. So I actually only have 22 in my collection, but I returned 3 foundations that I wanted to mention because they just didn't work out for me. Typically, a foundation has to perform pretty bad for me to return something. I don't know why I am in the mindset of like, maybe I'm just too lazy to return things, or it's such a hassle to go to the post office and then return things if you bought it online. So I usually end up not returning things, which is why I really rely on reviews for foundations and things like that, just to know if I really want to pick it up. But anyways, before we get started on the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Let me know what your favorite foundations are, and if you have a foundation recommendation that didn't make it onto my list, please let me know because I would love to try that out. I am always looking for the best of the best foundations, and I love to hear what you guys are loving. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell, leave your comments down below, and I think that's all. Share the video, I guess, is another one. But let's just get straight into it. So these are kind of the bottom 3. I don't even know how to rank them, but I guess the worst one, I feel bad saying this because I always complain about Fenty Beauty, but it was the Fenty Beauty foundation, the matte one. I haven't actually tried the luminous one because I just don't get along with Fenty Beauty products very well. But coming in last place is the Fenty Beauty, I think it's the Longwear foundation, something like that. It was the more matte one, but I tried it out because everyone was raving about it, and I picked up, I picked up a bottle, and it just looked absolutely terrible on me. It separated, it was so dry, it was so heavy. It's definitely more of that full coverage foundation. Again, I have dry skin, so it's kind of my own wrongdoing for picking that one up and thinking it would work for me. Just didn't work at all. The next one I wanted to mention was the Nude Sticks Tinted, I have my notes here, but the Nude Sticks Tinted Blur Foundation. I thought that one would be such a win for me because it described itself as a more sheer to light coverage foundation, and I liked the idea that it was in stick form. But once applied on the skin, it looked so heavy, which is weird because it was a sheer product, but it just looked really heavy on my skin. It emphasized every piece of dry skin I had, and it wore awful. It just wore off in patches. It looked patchy throughout the day. Really emphasized all my dry skin. It emphasized pores. It was very drying on the skin too, and it felt heavy. So I actually returned that one because it felt awful. And the last one, which was a sad one for me, was the YSL All-in-One Glow. I thought this one would be a favorite. Again, it's described as a light coverage. It was described as dewy, but again, it was very similar to the Nude Sticks in that it looked very heavy on my skin, and it just didn't feel nice. I could feel it on my skin all day. It really emphasized the texture of my pores. It didn't wear very well either, so unfortunately that one didn't work out for me. But now let's move on to the foundations that I actually still have in my collection. Coming in at number 22 is the L'Oreal Fresh Wear Foundation. So I don't buy drugstore makeup. I'm more of a luxury makeup buyer. That's just what I like to spend my money on. I do feel like you get your price worth with buying luxury makeup. But I decided to fall into the hype and try this guy out. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out at all for me. I barely use this because when I did try and use this, it looks awful, honestly. I mean, I know it works for some people, and I should preface by saying I like a light coverage foundation that looks dewy on the skin. I shouldn't say dewy on the skin. I like to feel hydrated. I don't like to feel product on my skin. I like my skin to look like skin. This one was just too heavy on me, even using a very small amount. I mean, the pumps are very big on this, so I would only recommend going in with one pump if you are using this foundation. But it just looked too heavy on me, and it also really emphasized any texture that I had on my skin. It didn't wear well on me, and unfortunately, I don't really know what I'm going to do with this one, but I still have it. So that is coming in at number 22. Number 21, I have the Too Faced Peach Perfect Comfort Matte Foundation. I really got drawn into this because I guess it was probably 3 years ago when this came out, but I used to suffer with more combination skin, and I heard really good reviews about this, so I tried it out. It is nice, it is perfecting on the skin, but it's just a little too heavy for me, and again, I felt it really drying throughout the day. So this one just was not my favorite, and now as I'm more dry, it just looks so heavy on me. It's too, I would describe it as a medium to full coverage. Definitely you can build it up, but it just looks too heavy on my skin. It doesn't wear the best, like I said, and I just feel like when I looked in the mirror, I could see it on my skin, and that's just something I don't enjoy. So that is coming in at number 21. Number 20, this one was a really sad one for me. This is the Dior Face and Body Foundation. So I think they released this about 2 years ago. And originally I thought it might be similar to the MAC Face and Body Foundation. This is definitely way more matte though. And it also isn't that light coverage. So I was very disappointed in this one just because, again, it really emphasized texture on my skin. It didn't lay over my skin smoothly. It didn't give me that no makeup look, which it kind of was described as. And I didn't really enjoy this one. It didn't wear long at all. I could probably get 4 hours of wear before it started getting patchy and just looking weird on the skin. And it does have a scent as well. It does have a light scent. I typically don't like scents in foundations anyways, but this one I just felt really awkward to wear because you had to be very specific with the primers you were using underneath, the powders you were using, and it's a high maintenance product that I don't enjoy. I'd rather spend my money on something that's going to look perfected on my skin where I don't have to manipulate it and fuss with it too much. So that is number 20. Coming in at number 19 is the CYO Life Proof Long Lasting Foundation. Again, I don't buy drugstore makeup too often, and I really got suckered into this one because I heard amazing things about it. This one, it does wear well, but it just looks not the best on the skin. It does look heavy, and it also emphasized all the texture in my pore areas. It emphasized dry patches on me, and also the coloring is very awkward as well. So this one, it just wasn't my favorite because I felt like you had to manipulate this foundation so much. And again, it just looked too heavy on my skin. I think the main reason why I disliked this was because it emphasized so much texture on my skin. And that's just not something I want in my foundation. But I had been hearing amazing things about it. It was a really inexpensive foundation. So I decided to try it out. And unfortunately, it's just something that didn't work out for me. Another drugstore foundation, I think it's just, I used to get sucked into the hype when people talk about these, but this is the Flower Beauty Light Illusion Foundation. This is terribly labeled. It just says flower and then everything just fades away after a while. But again, this is a more medium coverage. It's very dewy. It actually looks nice on the skin, but the problem I had with it is just a little too full coverage for me. You can thin it out, and it does actually look nice. It sits very well over pores, and it is more on the longer wearing side. So I think this would be my favorite drugstore foundation if you are looking for a nice one. The problem I have with this is that it just wears off a little too soon. Like, I felt like if I wore this to work, by the end of 8 hours, it just started wearing off a little patchy, which again is why I tend to go for more luxury beauty products, because I just find that they are more long wearing, they sit on my skin better, and this isn't terrible and it's not amazing. So it's kind of in that middle category. This is where foundations go from bad to they're all right. If you're just looking for something cheap that you can just wear if you're running errands, then I'd probably recommend this, but it's not something I would rely on. It's not something I would ever repurchase. It's just meh to me. So that is the Flower Beauty Light Illusion Foundation. Number 17 is the Wander Beauty Nude Illusion Liquid Foundation. So this one is nice. I feel like it's so average. It's it doesn't exactly sit the best on the skin, but it's not the worst. Like, again, it doesn't emphasize texture or pores or anything like that. It sits nicely on the skin. I just find it's maybe not that favorable in my forehead. It ends up sinking into fine lines. Again, I have my notes to rely on, but it does end up sinking into some fine lines, and it doesn't wear off the best. Like, I just find that my skin feels heavy by the end of the day, and I notice that by the end of the day, dry patches are coming up, and so it's not my favorite. Again, average foundation. It's okay. I think this would be a lot better for people who have oily skin and also are looking for something that's more medium to full coverage. So for me, that's just not my preference, and that is why it is coming in at number 17. For number 16, we have the Tom Ford Waterproof Foundation and Concealer. So this one, again, very average. It's a little too heavy for me. You can shear this out, and the reason why this is coming in at number 16 is because I find that I have to mix this foundation. That's kind of the same with all the foundations I mentioned before. To make them wearable, I did have to mix them. I can't wear this one on its own because, again, it's a little too heavy, and it just doesn't do anything for me. It definitely perfects your skin, but it doesn't blur the appearance of pores. It doesn't reduce the appearance of dry patches on my skin. And it is very long wearing. That's the one thing that this foundation is amazing for. Like, if you want to wear this in the summer for like a 12-hour day, you are set. But it just doesn't do anything for me. It just gives me like meh skin. Again, these are the meh foundations. And it's all right. I don't think it's worth the price though, because again, it's not doing anything for me. The next one was a really sad one for me. This is the Laura Mercier Flawless Lumiere Radiance Perfecting Foundation. I heard so many amazing things about this, and I was so excited to pick it up. And again, it's just a matte average foundation. I like how it looks on the skin, but I also feel like it really, I don't know, it makes my pores look larger. It sits on my pores awkwardly. It doesn't smooth over them. It is great for dry skin, I will say that. It looks really nice on my dry skin, but just in my pore area, even if I use my Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer, just doesn't look great over them. Another problem that I have with this is that it just looks heavy on my skin. No matter how little foundation I use, if I only go in with a pump, and these pumps are tiny, I'll say that, it just looks heavy on me, and I end up feeling very greasy throughout the day, which is weird because I usually don't have that problem. And I actually don't mind that look. But with this one, I just feel like I end up looking a little too greasy, and it looks heavy. So it makes me not want to touch up my makeup because my face already looks cakey. Or not, I shouldn't say cakey, it just looks heavy. It looks like I just applied a little too much foundation. That's just the vibe I get from this one. So unfortunately, this one wasn't a winner for me. And that is coming in at number 15. Coming in at number 14, this is very similar to the Laura Mercier Lumiere foundation. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder foundation. Again, this is very nice. I actually do find this more perfecting on pores. It's not going to totally smooth out the appearance, but the issue I have with this one is that it doesn't help out my dry patches. So it's different from the Laura Mercier where this one enhances my pores. This one enhances my dry patches. And it also looks heavy on the skin, which is so weird because it's described as a light covered foundation, and this is Charlotte Tilbury's lighter coverage foundation, but on me it just looks so heavy, and it does have a little bit of a fragrance in it, and for some reason Charlotte Tilbury's foundations make me break out. So unfortunately this is a non-winner for me. This is also a foundation that transfers, so I don't like foundations that transfer because I just feel it's more high maintenance. I have to be careful if I'm hugging people, or I have to be careful about leaning on my arm. That's just not my favorite foundation. So now we're kind of we're leaving matte territory and we're getting into, these are nice foundations, but they're just not in my top 10. And coming in at number 13 is the Lancome Renergy Lift Makeup. This one is a nice foundation. It looks nice on the skin, and that's how I'm going to describe the next two ones. They're just nice. They're not anything that's like spectacular. They're not super perfecting, they're not super long wearing, but they just look nice. So if you're looking for a nice foundation that's not going to enhance the appearance of pores or textures or dry patches or anything like that, that wears for a very average amount of time, this Lancome Renogy Lift Makeup is very beautiful. I would recommend this for dry skin if you're looking for something that's high end, but that's not super duper expensive, because this is a really pretty one. Number 12, we have the Chanel Sublimage, I think that's just what it's called, Sublimage Le Tint foundation. I have mine in the shade 32. The shades are so awkward in this, so that's one problem I have. I couldn't get a perfect match, and it has a very strong fragrance to it. But this one, it is very nice. The best thing about this foundation is that it is so perfecting on the skin. It makes your pores look blurred, like you look like you have perfect skin. I think the main problem I have with this one is that it's a little finicky to apply. You need to be careful about the primers you're using underneath, and you definitely need to powder this one because it does get more dewy throughout the day, but it is a very beautiful foundation. It is very nice. I use this one pretty often if I'm going just like running errands, or if I'm doing a very light makeup application where I want my skin to look like skin but still perfected, and I don't have to use any sort of pore blurring primer underneath. I don't have to mess around with that kind of stuff. It is really nice. I don't find it the longest wearing. It will start fading away maybe at the 10-hour mark, but it is a nice foundation that I recommend if you can find a good shade. So coming in at number 11 is the Givenchy Teint Couture Everwear Foundation. This one is actually very lovely. It is smoothing over pores. It doesn't enhance my dry patches. I feel like this is the foundation that I go to if I want my skin to look perfected and I want a very smooth coverage. Like, this is definitely more on the medium to full coverage foundation spectrum. And I usually don't go for that. But if I'm going out for a special event or a special occasion where I want my skin to just be a little more perfected, this is a foundation I like to reach for. Usually I will mix it, which again is why it's coming in at 11th place. But it is a very beautiful foundation, very long wearing. Again, like I say, it smooths over your skin very beautifully. And I think if you're looking for a foundation that's long wearing, that's full coverage, that's good for dry skin, I would check this guy out because it is really nice. The downside, I would say, is that it has a fragrance. That's kind of a high-end foundation issue, but this is a really nice one. Now we're moving into the top 10, which is exciting. Or maybe it's not exciting, I don't know. It's exciting for me because we are working our way through this. Coming in at number 10, this is a new discovery for me. This is the Chanel Le Beige Eau de Teint Water Fresh Tint from Chanel. I think I mentioned that. I got mine in the shade medium light, and I actually don't think I've used this on camera yet. This is such a nice foundation if you just are looking for something on the go. You just want to apply your makeup really quickly because you're running errands or you're just a girl on the go. Like, I like to do this on the weekends. I'll just apply 2 pumps of this, rub it in with my fingers, and then you don't even need a sponge to blend it in, which is really nice. It's a very unique formula. When you pump it out, it just looks like water with little like beads of foundation particles, or like foundation color, I guess. And then when you blend it into the skin, it feels so hydrating. It almost feels like a hyaluronic acid. And what this foundation does is it just gives you a veil of color, and it really perfects the skin. It sits over pores so beautifully. It doesn't enhance the appearance of pores. It doesn't enhance dry texture. If I wanted to get a more perfected look, I would blend it in with a sponge after I blended it in with fingers. But it just gives you such, I don't know, it's like your skin but better. It's very gorgeous. I even have used this. So when I was in Barrie visiting my grandma, this is where I tested out this and another foundation I'll mention. But I found that it worked really well as a primer underneath foundation. And it just helped my foundation sit on a little better. It also wears beautifully by itself. It doesn't fade away awkwardly. It's really nice. And you can also use this. This was my favorite thing about it. So I think there was one day where I applied my foundation at 7 in the morning, and then we were going out for dinner at like 8 p.m. So I just needed a little refresher. And what I did was just applied 1 pump of this. I blended it onto the palm of my hand and used my Beauty Blender sponge to touch up. So I just went over the areas where I just felt like I needed a little bit of, I don't know, enhancement. I just needed to look a little more fresh. And this just added a beautiful tint and a beautiful glow but it didn't look heavy over top of powder products. And it's a very unique product, and I'm very impressed with it thus far. Coming in at number 9 is the Guerlain La Ciel Foundation. I wore mine in the shade 02W. The shades are a little awkward on this one, but I really am loving this foundation. Again, it's a lighter coverage and it is more on the dewy side, but it wears all day long. It looks so gorgeous on the skin. This is definitely something that I will wear to work, that I will wear in my daily life, because it just looks so seamless on the skin. It will wear all day long, and again, I don't really touch up my makeup, and I don't feel like I need to when I use this type of foundation. It just smooths over everything very beautifully. But the reason why it didn't come into my top 5 is that it's just not as perfecting as the ones that I'm going to mention yet. But this is so beautiful. If you're looking for something that's not super luxury and it's still a reasonable price tag, this foundation I have no complaints about. Maybe one small complaint is that there is a little bit of a fragrance to it, but honestly, I've been really impressed with this foundation. It is just stunning on the face, and this is a foundation that also I would mix with maybe like a more fuller coverage foundation or a more matte foundation, just to add that more skin-like effect to it, because this is one of the most skin-like foundations that I found, besides the Chanel one that I mentioned previously. It's just very lovely on the skin. It just smooths over everything very beautifully. And I, without hesitation, would recommend this one. Very lovely. It gives you just, it's not overly glowy. Like sometimes when you buy a dewy foundation, it's like, okay, that's too dewy, that like I can't even wear that out in public and I need to powder it. This is one that I can apply. I don't need to powder. It gives you just a very healthy glow that gives you life, that gives you youth. It's perfect, and I think this would be a really nice one for mature skin as well. These are where things were really hard. I kept on going back and forth between foundations and really rearranging them, but I finally decided that this was the order we were going in. Number 8 is the Clé de Peau The Foundation. I really love this one. This is more, I would describe this as a moisturizer with coverage. It's probably the most similar to the Chanel one, the Chanel Water Tint that I mentioned. It's not really, I would say the coverage is similar because again, it's just like applying a moisturizer. It's so comforting on the skin. This is a foundation I can wear for like 16 hours. And at the end of the day, I don't feel like I need to scrub off my makeup. It doesn't feel like makeup on your skin, which is the best part about this. Another amazing thing about this is that it is so lightweight and it looks like your skin. It just perfects the skin. It smooths over pores. I don't want to say it makes you look poreless. It's not as poreless as the Chanel Sublimage, but it really does just smooth over texture, smooth over wrinkles. It really plumps up the skin. So if you're having a day where you just feel, I don't know, even if you had a hangover or something, I feel like this is the foundation I would reach for because it just is so plumping, so youthful, beautiful on the skin. I did a foundation review on this, and I feel like it wears very nice for a dewy foundation. It's coming in at number 8. Like, I feel like this is one of my top foundations, but I don't think this would wear very well in humidity or in very warm weathered climates. I haven't found this in the winter. I can just wear it all day long and I don't have to touch up, but this is very beautiful. It's very expensive, which again, I feel like because of the price point and that it might not work the best in the summer, that's why it's coming in at number 8. Number 7 is the Dior Air Flash Foundation. I love this foundation. I actually mentioned this in my Best of Beauty, but it is coming in at number 7 because my favorite way to use this is actually mixed in with more dewy foundations. So I actually love to mix it with the Clé de Peau because I feel like it gives it the perfect amount of coverage and just, it's perfection. When I mix this one, it's my favorite. When I mix it with the Guerlain La Ciel, the Chanel Sublimage, with my more dewy foundations, this is when it performs its best. I do love this on its own. Don't hesitate that fact. I do love it on its own. It is very perfecting on the skin. This is the most long-wearing waterproof foundation I have ever found. If I want my makeup to be bulletproof, if I'm out in the burning hot sun and I need it to last all day long, this is a foundation that will perform its best. It is very beautiful on the skin. It is truly an airbrushed foundation. When you apply it on your skin, it just applies so beautifully. My favorite way to apply this, I feel like, don't go and spray it on your face. That's just, no. What I like to do is If you don't have a palette, I would recommend getting a palette. Just spray it onto my palette. You only need like 2 sprays, like a 2-second spray. A little bit goes a very long way, and it just looks so perfecting on the skin. It sits over dry patches beautifully. It sits over pores beautifully. It's probably one of the only matte foundations I can get away with wearing because, again, I have dry skin and I like something that looks a little more dewy. This is just, you have to try it out if you haven't already. Again, it's not super luxury where it's so overly expensive. Yes, it's an expensive foundation, but it's not out of touch with reality. I think that this is very much worth the money. It just looks gorgeous on the skin. Wears all day. I never have to touch up with this one, even if I am like outside all day and it's burning hot. This is such a good foundation, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely would recommend it. You do have to shake it up before you use it. That's very important, and it's a really lovely one. So if you haven't tried this out, like I said, totally recommend it. I wear the shade 321. I've actually had this bottle for a while, and I feel like it's hard to run out of, and this is also a nice one for traveling. It's just easy to travel with, especially if I'm going somewhere where it's hot out, because it will last all day. I promise you, it will. Number 6 is a new discovery to me. This is the Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation. This is such a good foundation. I feel like on the coverage side, it's one step up from the Clé de Peau, the foundation. It offers just the tiniest bit more of coverage, and it also is just the slightest bit more long wearing. I feel like I could actually wear this Chantecaille foundation. I'm wearing it right now, which is why I'm looking at my face. I feel like I could wear it in the summer and it wouldn't fade away. It wouldn't get too dewy. It's definitely more on the hydrating side, but it's not overly hydrating where you're going to look greasy or anything. It also wears all day long, and when it wears off very naturally. It's not going to wear off in patches. It's not going to look awkward throughout the day. I've actually fallen asleep in this makeup, and when I woke up, I was still impressed with how my skin looked. I don't recommend doing that, by the way, but I think this is a really nice foundation, and I'm a little mad at myself for not picking this up sooner because this is obviously one of my top 10 foundations. Very beautiful. I feel like if you have mature skin, this would be amazing for you because, again, it's not too dewy, it's not too matte. It falls right in the middle of the spectrum, and it's very lovely over the skin. It smooths over dry patches and any texture that I have. It smooths over my pores. It's not pore blurring per se, but it does smooth over them very nice and reduces them in a slight amount. And it gives you that your skin but better look. It's probably a light to medium coverage. You could build it to medium, but I wouldn't build it any further past that because then you're just taking away from the foundation and the skin-like effect that it has. Very natural. Not overly dewy, not overly matte, and it's just skin perfecting, which is my favorite types of foundations. So that is coming in at number 6. Well, we've made it to the top 5, and that's pretty exciting. This was, honestly, I thought the top 10 was the hardest to narrow down, but narrowing it down to my top 5 was so difficult because I kept on going back and forth. But these are my top 5 that I can rely on without primers underneath. I can rely on all day without having to feel like I need to check in my mirror to see what my foundation is performing like. I can rely on them in cold, in rain, in snow, in heat. So these are my top 5 that I just feel like I would recommend to anyone. So number 5 is the La Mer Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation. This is a new discovery for me. I actually have tried it in the past and didn't really enjoy it, but now as I'm getting older, I think that is why I'm enjoying it more. It looks so nice on the skin. It lays beautifully. It's so long wearing. This is a foundation that I would only wear for special occasions though, because it is more on the medium to full coverage side. I wouldn't wear this to work, or I wouldn't use this in my day to day. This is definitely a special occasion foundation for me because it is just so perfecting, and it gives me, I don't want to say it's makeup-y, but it's just not as skin-like as some of my other foundations, but it is so perfecting and it looks so beautiful on the skin. But it is a foundation at the end of the day, and it does look like you have a bit of foundation on, which is why it's number 5. But again, so long wearing, smoothing, perfecting. It does have kind of it smells like brandy or something, or sherry, or some sort of alcohol. It's a little weird, but That's the only negative I have to say about it. Again, very beautiful. They came out with more shades. I think the reason why I didn't like it before was because I could not get the right shade. Now I wear the shade 230 Light Ochre. It's possibly the tad is a bit too dark, but if I blend a little bit down my neck, it's totally fine. And again, that's what I would do for a special occasion. Very beautiful foundation that I would recommend. Number 4 is the Sisley. This is the Tinted Sun Scare Youth Protector in the shade 2 Golden. So this is Sisley's tinted sunscreen, and this is so wonderful, honestly. So the texture of this is very interesting. It is super thick, so you'd think it would be super full coverage, and it is definitely more on the medium to full coverage side, but this is so perfecting on the skin. It smooths out like a dream and looks just absolutely amazing on the skin. It perfects any fine lines, any dry patches that I have. It smooths beautifully over pores. And the best thing about it is that it wears all day freaking long, especially when you're out in the hot sun and you just need to rely on a product that will get you through the day, that's not going to look greasy, that's not going to bunch up, that's not going to fade away awkwardly. This is truly one of the best foundations I've ever tried. And it might seem weird to be in my top 5, but this is something I can even use in the winter. We still need sunscreen all throughout the year, but this is the foundation that I rely on when I go on vacation or I'm in a hot climate, if I'm going to the pool in the summer, if I need to even go out for dinner in the summertime. This is something I will wear for special occasions because it is honestly gorgeous on the skin. It definitely use a very small amount because it is more on the medium to full coverage side, but it doesn't look too dry, it doesn't look too dewy. It's just one of the best foundations I have ever used. There's a slight fragrance to it, so if you are sensitive to fragrance, just know that about Sisley. Definitely expensive for a tinted sunscreen, but again, I use this for more than a tinted sunscreen. I use this in my daily life if I'm going to work, if I am going out to dinner, for obviously, like I said, vacations, for traveling. It's a lovely, lovely foundation, and it definitely made its way into its top 5, and I just love this guy. We are reaching our top 3. I always said the top 10 was really hard, the top 5 was really hard, but the top 3 was the hardest because you are being very specific, and I felt like I didn't want to let anyone down, and I wanted to be very real about this. So it was really hard because I love all these 3 foundations. Number 3 is the Sisley Phytotaunt Ultra Clot Foundation. We're going with another Sisley one. This one is truly, truly beautiful. It blurs the appearance of pores, imperfections. It lays over dry patches beautifully. The most long-wearing foundation. I think both these Sisley foundations are probably the most long-wearing I've ever found. This one came in at number 3 because it's just a little bit more pore blurring. Such a lovely foundation. I am so happy that I picked this one up because it is truly amazing. This is something I will use more for event makeup, kind of similar to La Mer. Not that the coverage is definitely less than the La Mer, but it's just so perfecting on the skin that I am scared to run out of this because, I mean, I would repurchase it, but I don't want to if I don't have to. And so I definitely reserve this for more special occasions or when I need my makeup to last a really long time because this is honestly the most long-wearing foundation. That and the Dior, the spray one, very long-wearing, but this one's just more perfecting on the skin. So happy with this one. And I feel like this is another matte foundation. It's a foundation that's more on the matte side that would look beautiful on mature skin. Highly, 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 highly recommend this one. My number 2 foundation is the Tom Ford Traceless Stick Foundation. I wear mine in this shade 6.0 Natural. Again, gorgeous foundation. This I can wear in the summer, in the winter, spring, fall, obviously, and it just looks amazing. It sits on my skin beautifully, really sits over dry patches well, reduces the appearance of pores. It just, oh, I love this foundation. It's so pretty. This is a foundation that I would also recommend for oily, for dry skin, for combo skin, mature skin. I just think this is absolutely stunning. Tom Ford did an amazing job. This is another foundation I love to travel with because it's so easy, it's so simple. Throw it in your bag, you don't have to worry about anything shattering or breaking. And it's amazing. It wears all day long. It's that perfect medium coverage foundation that just everyone could get use out of. There's no fragrance, it's not offensive smelling. I mean, I feel like stick foundations kind of have a certain smell to them, but again, it's not offensive. They have a decent color range. They could probably do with a bit deeper colors, but I am so happy with this foundation. So glad I tried it out because, again, very long wearing, perfecting on the skin, lays over dry patches nice, wears all day, looks good, dry skin, oily skin, combo skin. I can't not recommend this one. It's one of my favorites. It's something that I use at least twice a week, and that's good for me because you have seen all the foundations I have. And my number one foundation is the Surratt Dewdrop Foundation. This is so lovely. This is the perfect everyday foundation. I wear this on most days where I'm going to work because it is just the perfect light to medium coverage foundation. Now, don't build this past medium because it is not meant to be like a full coverage foundation. It's meant to perform its best at the light to medium coverage. It wears all day long. It just gives you the most beautiful, healthy glow. It sits gorgeously over the skin. Again, it just smooths over lines. If you have any dry patches, it will smooth over them perfectly. This might not be your favorite if you're very oily, but since I am super dry, this is coming in my number one because it just looks amazing on my skin. Even at the end of the day, I feel like I have that perfect amount of dewy glow to my skin, and I just look so healthy, so plump, so fresh. This is my favorite, and God, I am so excited that Surratt dropped this foundation. Drop because it's the Dewdrop, but it's stunning. It's another one, again, that you wouldn't think would wear all day because it's described as a more dewy foundation, but for me, this wears all day long. I have no issues with it. It doesn't break apart. It doesn't fade awkwardly at all. It fades very beautifully. I don't even feel like it fades. It just gets a bit glowier, but in the most gorgeous way where you just look more healthy and youthful. You don't look greasy, at least on my skin. And that is it for this video. So I would love to know, what are your top 5 foundations or your top foundation? It was so hard to rank these, honestly. My list changed about 12 times because I kept on going back and forth and I wanted to be very specific. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this ranking style of foundation reviews. I don't know. I feel like it was fun. Hopefully you guys thought it was fun as well if you find reviews fun. I've said fun too much, and I've also said foundation too much. And let's just stop. Leave your comments down below and let me know your favorite foundations and if I missed out on one that I need to try out. Again, remember, everyone's skin is different, so if I didn't mention your favorite foundation or if it ranked less than, all our skin is different. We all have different preferences. We all have different skin types and we all live in different climates. So just remember that, and no judgment, because why would we judge other people's foundation preferences? We're all unique and individuals. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, leave your comments down below, ring the bell, share the video if you want to share it, and I will see you guys in my next one.